Hello, Wobbly Phil here. Imagine you're living in the UK in the winter of 1978. It's the coldest winter since 1963, with so much snow that some parts of the country can only be reached by helicopter. Jim Callaghan is Prime Minister, the Labour Party is running the country, and it's not going well. Everyone's on strike for more pay, including the grave diggers and rubbish collectors. Body bags and bin bags are piling up in the street. Hospitals are reduced to only admitting emergency cases, with union pickets blockading the entrances. The army are on standby to take over the distribution of fuel and drive petrol tankers. A nationwide state of emergency is under consideration. Yep, I was there and it really was that shit. But wait, something was riding over the hill to brighten up our miserable British lives. It had 6 cylinders, redlined at 10,000 RPM, and made a sound like a box of banshees having an orgy. It was Honda's CBX1000. When the CBX appeared in the bike mags, it was almost literally unbelievable what the actual feck had Honda done. 1000 cc's made it a monster among motorcycles, and as for the 6 cylinders, well, we'd only just got used to having 3 or 4. At the time, my Honda 404 already felt like a superbike to me, having graduated from smoky single-cylinder 2-strokes. I just couldn't imagine what an extra 600 cubic centimeters and 50% more cylinders would be like. But, of course, there weren't many of them around, especially where I lived, where most folk were so impoverished they were reduced to roasting gravel for their evening meal. So, when the December 1978 copy of Bike magazine arrived in the newsagents, I was agog. There, among the ladies' bottoms selling helmet accessories, exercise devices aimed at blokes who wanted to see a lady's bottom in real life, and small ads from lads who had bought the exercise devices, were now fully buffed, and were ready for their first actual lady bottom encounter, was an article comparing the CBX to Yamaha's beast of a bike, the XS1100. I'm going to concentrate here on the CBX because that's the bike that my teenage dreams were made of. I'll probably get around to the XS1100 at some point though, so do subscribe and hit the notification button so you don't miss that. Billed as the ultimate giant test because these bikes were as big as they got in the 1970s, Bike magazine set out to determine, in its own words, whether either of them had any meaning in the real world of motorcycling. The Yamaha weighed in at 632 pounds, that's 287 kilograms wet, and the CBX boasted 105 bhp. Considering a normal big bike at the time, say a Triumph Bonneville, weighed in at around 230 pounds or 104 kilos less and packed a 50 bhp punch, these were the motorcycle equivalents of Saturn V rockets. Heck, you could probably fly one to the moon and back. No wonder Bike's reviewers were skeptical about their usefulness, especially on UK roads, where you'd have to weave around holes, army ambulances, flying pickets, uncleared snowdrifts, and piles of shit lying in the streets. It was the same year Dawn of the Dead hit the cinemas, and to us Brits, that came across as a documentary. Bike's intrepid reviewer, the excellent Dave Calderwood, who's apparently still going strong and mainly writes about planes these days, leapt on the 6-cylinder machine with a good deal of apprehension and found it excessive in every direction: size, weight, power, speed, most especially power and speed, claiming it'll accelerate you up beyond your personal riding limits. Interestingly, Kawasaki is deemed to have missed a trick by making their 6-crazed beast, the Z1300, water-cooled, meaning the big radiator obscured the sexiness of the engine. If you haven't watched it yet, do check out my recent video on the Big Z. From a technical standpoint, Honda seem to have done their stuff, as ever, gaining valuable experience from racing 6-cylinder 250cc bikes capable of 150 miles per hour in the 1960s. They slavishly adhered to one objective, producing an out-and-out sportster, or what we'd nowadays call a sports bike. Not that the CBX bears any resemblance to the plastic-coated bullets of today. Boasting 4 valves per pot, that's 24 in total if my dodgy maths is right, and massive torque above 2000 RPM, the CBX was only let down by its rear end not being up to the job of handling all that power and weight, with a disconcerting looseness leading to the need to be careful when decelerating into bends. There was no clever electronic box of tricks managing all that in those days, although you could fiddle with the settings on the rear shocks. That said, all 600-pound, 270-kilo wet weight could be flipped from side to side with confidence, and didn't have the XS1100's bad habit of wanting to go straight on all the time. Conversely, in a straight line, the CBX would leap around quite alarmingly if it hit a bump in the road. Stopping all that mass were what were deemed to be the best brakes Honda had ever made, the twin front discs apparently being more than up to the job. Nowadays, of course, just about anything on 2 wheels will get you to 100 miles per hour, even an electric scooter if the hooded morons scaring the bejesus out of the grannies shopping in my hometown are anything to go by. But back then, attaining 3 digits on your speedo was a thing. So no, a CBX would not impress the youngsters of today, but that feeling I got as a teenager seeing the CBX has stayed with me. I can only describe it as a mix of anxiety and awe, like visiting New York or seeing the Leaning Tower of Pisa for the first time. If you wanted to own one today, and I would in a heartbeat if I wasn't such a mechanical nincompoop and didn't feel it was at least 6 times above my official skills grade, you'd have to pay anything between £10,000 and £20,000 for the pleasure. I recently met a sprightly 80-year-old at my local bike shop who'd owned his CBX since he bought it new in 1980, and he was still loving it. 44 years, that's 4 times longer than the average marriage lasts. He reported no problems with the weight and handling, had a grin on his face, and looked as fit as a butcher's dog. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please consider liking, subscribing, commenting, and sharing to let YouTube know we're doing something right here at 3 Phils. Thank you.